Hey everybody, good morning. Just checking in. Hope the weekend went well for everyone. I had about 4 clients scheduled yesterday. That's part of doing the PRN social work job. So I didn't have the full-on weekend, but we didn't have intro class yesterday, so that was good. So was kind of jumping into week 4 on legal, ethical, and multicultural issues in groups. So a lot of things come up in groups. I've led many groups at different places. I've had friends lead groups more recently. It has gotten a bit more challenging with like COVID. So stuff has gone like electronic and online, but being a social worker, we still work with humans, and that's a big part of it. So I was going to get you started on some of the legal and ethical stuff that comes up, and even at the end, have some multicultural things in here. So knowing your liabilities when you're a group leader. I know some of you are observing your groups this week and next and doing the write-up to learn how to lead it. So that's good. And we'll start with this one. Only if it wants to play, of course. Maybe today is one of the days it doesn't want to play, but that's okay. It's interesting, there's actually 2. So I want to see if some of the accessibility we put on in the other one. All right, so without my co-teacher Jen this morning, I'm going to dig into this. So this week we're going to be able to identify key legal and ethical considerations for conducting your group work. I want to make it bigger for you guys so you can actually see some of it. So with ethics and the law, they are 2 separate entities, but we're going to kind of go over where they overlap. The law and ethics overlap. We're going to make law the basketball and ethics the soccer ball, and kind of show where they overlap from the book. So ethics is the suggested standards of conduct, and that's based on professional values, also based off of autonomy, beneficence, non-malfeasance, justice, fidelity, and veracity. The code of ethics are actually created by organizations to set standards. And that could be, for us, it's the social workers, for folks that do addictions counseling, that's like the addictions group. There's also the Association of Group Workers. They have a best practices guideline. So you could even look that one up and add that as a citation in your projects and paper. So some of the major ethical issues that come up are the training of group leaders, the screening of potential members, the rights of group members, what rights they have. Most of the time, these groups are voluntary, so they're signing into the groups and agreeing to participate, even if they're court ordered. So some may argue that if you're court ordered, it's not totally voluntary, which is true. But a lot of times I'd hear the POs say, well, you can either volunteer to go to the group or you can volunteer to go to jail or prison. So they would volunteer to go more often to the group because it does save prison time. Confidentiality, that's one that comes up all throughout social work. So we'll have folks sign off on things to where everything shared in the group is confidential. If you are harm to self or harm to others, we do have a duty to report. So that does make it a bit more challenging. Also, trying to enforce group members to be confidential is somewhat semi-challenging. And then the personal and dual relationships. So these also come up a lot, even in teaching. So we have that in our code of ethics as social workers, that we don't want to have like a dual relationship outside of teaching a student. Say we don't go hang out with them at parties. If it is working with someone in groups, we don't have a relationship with them outside. And we get into that a lot into, hello, Shakira. In Intro to Social Work, we talk about dual relationships and things that come up. Now, specific with group, as you guys learn these, as you observe your group, you'll have the use of group techniques. So learning how to run a group, how to do the storming, forming, norming, and then also closing it up. One thing that's unique with groups is that we bring our leaders' values into the group. So as unique as we would want to be about things, sometimes, as neutral as we want to be, you'll bring your own thoughts and feelings and even opinions into the group. You try your hardest to keep them out, but not always do they stay out. And then a few things at the end is record keeping. So we always have to keep record. You have to write notes, especially for your insurance that you're billing, or if you are billing Medicare and Medicaid, that would come up. You've got to do good record keeping and make sure often they're kept behind 2 locked doors at your agency. So they'll have a training in that for you. And the final piece is closing and follow up. And that's one that actually a lot of social workers have a hard time doing for whatever reason. Closing with people and finishing up, more so on individual basis than in the groups. But, a lot of times you want to have like even a graduation party or something where you celebrate and explore. Hello, Dr. Lichtenberg. So those are some of the major ethical issues that come up, some of the legal issues that come up. So definition of law here. Law refers to a body of agreed upon rules of society that set forth basic principles for living together as a group. And that's from the book. We do have an overlap between both legal and ethical issues going on. So that's something that comes up a lot. We also have the community, state, and national standards. So if you are practicing where our school is located, which is the state of Ohio, we have our own CSW MFT that you follow, counselors, social workers, marriage and family therapists. There's the National Association of Social Workers Code of Ethics. You can find that. There is, we sometimes have Russian students. So just so you know, there is Russian at the bottom of the screen. We had a few Russian students last semester. I thought one had registered for a summer class. So if you wonder how I'm being translated, They said that was a good translation. And then last piece is if there is a legal action, we do our best to first try and attempt prevention with legal action. So making sure that you aren't breaking confidentiality, making sure that you don't have a dual relationship, making sure you don't have things that come up that way with the legal issues. So, in summary, ethics suggests standards of conduct based on a set of professional values. So, a lot of those we find with counselor and social work, and marriage and family therapy. The law is a body of rules recognized by state or community as binding on its members. And if you do have questions, go ahead and put them into the group chat here live. I'll try to respond to them as they come up. So a lot of the professional values we stand for, again, are these 5 major ones: autonomy, beneficence, non-malfeasance, justice, fidelity, and veracity. So that's where our ethical obligations lie. With law, it's different state by state. So definitely check your state that you're practicing in. The law is a body of rules recognized by state or community as binding on its members. There is overlap between ethics and law, and group workers must be familiar with both in order to make the kinds of decisions necessary to promote effective outcomes of their members. So a lot of times you'll have group members ask you questions about the law, especially if you're leading an addictions group and they want to know, like, how many DUIs can they get before it's a felony, or what are the repercussions if they skip their DUI group, or if they don't report to their probation officer or parole officer. So here's some of the references here. I mentioned the Association of Group Workers, and the links might still actually work. So I'm going to try to go ahead and link into some of these for you guys. So yeah, now it's called Association for Specialists in Group Work. That's a big one that comes up. Also, there's the Association for the Best Practices. We have ACA Code of Ethics. So that's on counseling.org, and they have their code that you can download, just so you're familiar with some of these. The most recent time they updated was about 8 to 10 years ago. So here is that. And then the last hot link I have on this is the Ohio Counselor, Social Worker, and Marriage and Family Therapist Rules. And that was last updated in about 2013. So also 10 years ago. And you'll get notices when you sign up for these professional places. They will have like email updates and things that you can check in on. So with that, actually perfect time is right. 10:15, as I do want to give you guys the hour time to observe your mental health group, either in person or online. There's some online ones. And hello, Tiona. So we're going to get into multicultural issues next. So finishing up with legal and ethical issues and where the overlap is. Definitely different state by state, but overall very much the same. Confidentiality is found nationally. Not having a dual relationship is kind of also a legal and ethical national rule. So some of those things you can find national. So now with multicultural, and there are a few groups I led with refugees from Burundi, Africa, that came over after a civil war. And that was a big one that had come up. Some of you have been in my class, and I've spoken on those before in Intro to Social Work and in HBSE. But here's some of the learning objectives for multicultural. You should be able to identify multicultural issues as related to group work. Also assess one of your own awareness and understanding of cultural values and competence and comfort for multicultural considerations in group work. Consider diversity in groups. So this is one that you guys could even type into the chat. Where do you think diversity in group exists in? So these are ones that you can show you're paying attention, or if you're watching it not live, you can type it in with your name when you sign in for attendance. So diversity exists in, first and foremost, well, I mentioned refugees from Burundi, Africa. So like there's international and cultural ones. There's race, ethnicity, language. So that's a challenging one. Some of you may lead Spanish groups if you are choosing to get a Bachelor of Arts that includes 2 Spanish classes. We also have culture, gender, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, religion, ableism, and a few more. So these are some of the areas we have diversity in group practice. So working effectively with diverse populations, you want to make sure to define and acknowledge the culture. So this can be all throughout the United States. At Lighthouse Youth Services, I led a trauma-informed care group. At Claremont Recovery Center, I would lead groups that were more specific to addiction and Appalachian culture. And usually the agencies you work for will give you the training on the diversity you should have and that you should know. There's also modification and theory technique, also developing group theory and techniques. Some of the things you want to know as you work with different cultures. So you want to define and acknowledge culture. Here they say the definition of a culture is that it encompasses the values, beliefs, and behaviors shared by a group of people. Broadly defined, culture takes into consideration demographic variables such as like age, gender, residence, status variables like social, educational, and economic, and affiliations, and then formal and informal. So those are some of the areas you'll see different things that come up. Also defining and acknowledging culture. So there's diversity component. So there's diversity component group counselors, and they're able to explore the impact of culture and factors on all of their clients and all aspects of their lives. They are diversity competent in the areas and the beliefs and attitudes of knowledge and skills. And that's one of the famous group leaders, Corey. They wrote the book in 2010, and I think they have an updated one that came out recently. So you can find a lot of resources online by Dr. Corey. He and his wife and even his daughter had written a few books on groups and multiculturalism. There's also surface dimensions, like music and food, dimension of culture. Like with the refugees at church, they would do different chants when we would have them sing at St. Leo's Catholic Parish. Some of the food they had, we helped access seeds for them to grow that food in the women's group we led there. So that helped them feel safe from some of the PTSD. There's a deeper dimension: faith, religion, values, language, and family structure. So a lot of them that came over were Christian, most were Catholic. We helped translate the Bibles for them. Some of the visible things are race and or gender. Some of the invisible dimensions of culture are ethnicity, sexual orientation, and even social class. So this, and there's several examples of groups being led. Yalom is one of the most famous, so I might actually play him, as I think this video has since expired. But seeing how people interact, and then you as the group leader, how do you rein that in? How do you help take control and help them get something out of it for when they graduate? So working effectively with diverse populations, there's defining and acknowledging the culture. So that could be the modification of theory and technique. You might enter into it with like behavioral theory and finish with ecological theory. And that's because it's like a holistic perspective and identifying basic needs that are common to everyone, like food, water, and shelter, and some of the case management stuff and the need for sobriety from addiction. You may also develop group theory and techniques while you're doing it. This could be with myth busting, for example, discussing differences, homogeneity in groups, also the role and differences in task and psychoeducational groups, the theory and culture. So here's some of the multicultural group work in action. So first you have to recruit and screen the people that you want in your group. Then you'll have planning and strategies. We decided to do like a horticulture therapy group with the refugees because that's what they had asked for when we did recruit and screen them. So we got them the access to land and seeds and tools. There could be with leadership. We as the social worker are the leaders, but eventually you want to cultivate leaders inside the group. And that could be with self-awareness, increasing awareness and ability. That might be with consulting with some of them, immersion with a lot of them, checking in. That's like a big group thing you'll see in the girl circle that I sent out. So you'll lead your group if you would like to using the pamphlet from Girl Circle. If you have your own materials, certainly you can use your own materials to lead the group. And checking in is a big part of it. And then language training, because sometimes you have more than one language in that group. A few more aspects of culture. There's substance use as part of culture. So there are actually some cultures, Rastafarians, even some other different cultures that do use substances as part of their groups. I think Native Americans use peyote. There's a few other hallucinogenic things they do in like a sweat lodge that is part of their culture and their spirituality. So weeding that out, if you're leading a substance abuse group, is it part of the culture or is it an addiction problem? So also learn how to the set and the setting where you're running the group. Is it a good space? Some of these practical implications are like therapy groups may involve clashes of culture or subculture. That can occasionally occur. Interpersonal learning, and this is by Dr. Yalom, is the process through which group members learn to accept that not everyone in the group holds the same set of assumptions, beliefs, customs, rules, norms, and habits. And that's just society in general. We all have different set of assumptions, beliefs, customs, norms, and habits. So we as the social worker and therapist must prepare for the work by enhancing your own awareness of possible dynamics associated with culture, and then develop a sensitivity to to address them. And that's huge because why these trainings are offered at each place that you go to is because it's different at each space. When I worked in Claremont Recovery Center, it was 80% Appalachian. So they did have a training on the Appalachian culture. When I was at Lighthouse Youth Services, they had other trainings. And so as a social worker, we're going to be examining our own culture background in terms of assumptions, belief, customs, rules, norms, and habits. And that's the first step. So like knowing yourself first. And then when you lead a group, knowing the culture of the group of folks that you are leading. So in summary, culture encompasses values, beliefs, and behaviors shared by a group of people. It's broadly defined. Culture takes into consideration demographic variables such as age, gender, and residence. Also, status variables such as social, educational, and economic. And then also affiliations like formal and informal. And the dimensions of culture include surface stuff and then sometimes deeper things that go on. And most importantly, self-awareness is necessary as a step in the process of developing culture. So when we opened up the association of group work, you can see they do have conferences. So that's one of the things. They even have like a Twitter. So maybe sometimes they put up videos about culture and different things that come up. They obviously have Instagram, Dr. Yalom, and groups, and a video. So there's a few videos. Dr. Yalom, who's like the famous outpatient and inpatient group psychotherapy. Also understanding groups and some of the live consultations that he had. So here's his intro interview with Dr. Yalom, which he had a few good things on this.
Well, thinking of these kinds of things, there must also be an important factor in terms of the characteristics of the group members as they start. How do you select, say for outpatient groups, how do you select your members for the group? What are your criteria?
Basically, what I do, and I think really all group therapists do this, is that we deselect members for our group. By that I mean, if I'm starting a group, I start to interview patients who come to me, and I deselect certain patients. I say, this patient can't possibly work in this group, and so I don't accept that patient, or may not take this patient, but then I take everyone else that I think can work in the group and put them in the group. A much more scientific idea would be, well, let's say I've got 20 patients on a waiting list, and if I could only select the 7 or 8 perfect patients who would just be the right fit and make the perfect therapy group. But there's really no way to do that. There's been lots of PhD dissertations written on how you compose the idea, and frankly, it simply doesn't work. I think the human being is infinitely complex, and there isn't any kind of initial tests that we can use or way of diagnosing the person that's going to let us know how these people are going to interact. So I think I can start off with any group of 7 or 8 people and help begin to mold them into an effective therapy group.
So that's kind of how he selects groups. I was just going to show one more. It's only a few minutes about outpatient therapy. We'll do inpatient next class, but this is an outpatient therapy group that he runs. It's kind of the model that they've used.
I'd like, if we could, go back still to that question of impressions that people have, feelings that people have right here from what they've seen of one another in this meeting. Any thoughts about that?
Well, I'm a little worried about Alice because she's so quiet. You just sit there, you don't have very much to say this afternoon.
It takes me a long time to get comfortable in this kind of group. It just seems so intense here. Like every word is being studied. I'm just afraid to what others will think about me.
Well, I saw you smiling earlier, Alice. I thought that you were judging me.
Being judgmental? I didn't get that. I just felt she didn't want to be put on the spot.
Ellen, I noticed that you attempted to take the focus off of Alice during the introductory round. You seem to be very sensitive to her discomfort.
Well, I disagree with that. I don't believe that he was being sensitive to her. I think he should have given her the full time to say what she had to say. I think Alan may have actually just wanted more time for himself. How do you feel about that, Alice? Let's check that out.
It's not true. I don't want the spotlight. I'm very shy, and in fact, when I go to parties, I make it a point to come in late so that I could help the hostess clean up the glasses.
How was it for you to stay in group, Alice? No glasses to clean here.
I thought about bringing some coffee cake at the next meeting.
And maybe some glasses?
Think some more about your experience, though.
So you see the weird stuff that comes up.
I know, because I think something really important happened here just a couple minutes ago. I want to just focus on just a second. I'm really interested, Bob, in what you just said about your own gay experience when you were younger. Have you ever said that before to anyone else? Once, 10 years ago to my therapist. And until this moment, this group, you've never told anyone else, never told peers. No, I've never told any group of people that, no.
I have a hunch that that was a real gift to Alan. I don't know, I guess I get so wrapped up in my own emotions, I don't think about other people's feelings. I guess that's what Betty meant when she told me about it a couple of weeks ago.
But Ellen, I don't think you're still acknowledging Bob's gift to you.
I guess you're right. I don't know why it's so difficult for me just to come out and say thank you. I mean, thank you all, because you've all been supportive. You've all helped me. I appreciate it. I got it off my chest.
I'm glad you did, Alan. You feel finished, or there are the parts of this you want to work on today?
Well, no, not today.
So what you want to do today?
So that's some group counseling with adults. It can be a little more challenging with children because keeping them
So
on
I would
task.
like each of you to take, I'm gonna pass them both ways, 6.
But explain it before you pass it out, because once they did, they knew.
That's true, that's a good idea. So let me tell you what you're gonna do when you get them. You notice that there are different kinds of crayons and markers and that sort of thing. When you get your strips, you're gonna get 6. On 4 of them, you're gonna put, and you can put it in words or a design or a picture, anything that you like, ways that you are the same as at least one other person in the group. So 4 are same, and 2 are ways that you were special or unique or maybe the only one in this group of people. You can just write, you can draw or write or.
And sometimes you can use the same.
You might, but we're not gonna have to put that. You might.
Yep, that's fine with me. What about you?
So to start with, Roman asked to start, and we're just gonna share with the group one of your ways that you're similar to at least one other person in the group.
I like Porsche.
And you're similar to a couple of people on that. And what's your different one?
The difference is that my family's from Russia.
Cool, thank you.
I'm the only one wearing a bandage.
And, we're all having fun. Great. Thursday?
Only one wearing yellow. And, I like rap music.
I think you have some company with that, huh? Okay, your turn.
My mom and you have the same last name, and we don't have the same birthdays.
Right, although maybe we should find out, huh? Do you think it's possible that anybody?
That's what we should say our birthdays.
Yeah, okay.
I am the only person who likes social studies, and we don't have them.
All right, great. Now we'd like you to create something together, some kind of a creation. It could be
Whatever you want.
whatever you want, and if you would like to use that, you can, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. But some way to put these together and make something to kind of look at that would represent the sameness and the differences in this group.
Do we have to use all of them? No, can we take the paper off?
Yes, please do.
You can cover it with just cover it. Just choose your favorite one. Choose your favorite one. I go like this. They put square.
Okay, so I have some questions for, yeah, we've got kind of a bit of a mess, but we'll take care of that.
Do you have your seat? Oh, slide your chair up a little bit.
Yeah. Would you scoot your chair up a little bit? Thank you. So first of all, here's our creation, but I'd like to talk a little bit about how you went about doing this and working together as a team. What did you notice? What did you do well? What did you do not so well?
So as you can see with kids, there is a lot more that people have to plan for.
Codependency. Codependency is an addiction to taking care of others at the cost of yourself. Codependency destroys relationships because it slowly eats away at your self-worth. You've had a health crisis and you're still not listening. You're still focused on taking care of others more than taking care of yourself. You have money in the bank, but you're broke in the bedroom. In other words, you have sexually dysfunctional relationships in the bedroom. When you rather go to the bar than go home. That means you're disconnected from your significant other and you're tempted to numb out. Many highly successful people are not aware that these are signs of low self-worth. So they believe that building a net worth translates to building a self-worth. And so time and time again, they find themselves completely burnt out and facing another failed relationship. No, therapy is a great place for listening and being understood, but the answer lies in coaching because it takes action, measurement, and accountability to build your self-worth. And when you build your self-worth, you can create healthy, intimate relationships that last.
We'll see if that'll quiet it. Again, when working with kids and then working with adults, you do have some similarities. Some of the main components we are putting in there, and we'll get into that next class with storming, forming, norming, and some of those group hot button words. But with kids, a lot of times you do need more planning. Sometimes you need those materials that you saw there and things that help out in that area. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Open up for you guys with questions. If you're having a hard time finding a group to observe, I did send a link of some, but go ahead and reach out. And if you found one, send it just so I can make sure it's an open group that you're able to go observe it and then write up your first major assignment. So see you next time and have a good middle of the week.